This is News at 8.
This is a primetime news bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. This bulletin is also available across Europe on London-based ABN television. In this edition, public sector workers stage demonstrations in Accra and Kumasi to demand that governments give them a chance to decide who manages their Tier 2 pension contributions. Minority MPs, after walking out on deliberation of special petroleum tax bill, vow to continue to resist it. Meanwhile, the Speaker of Parliament, outraged after 2 days of erratic electricity supply to the House, had set up a committee to investigate Parliament's blackouts. He pledges to ensure passage of affirmative action bill to encourage more women to take up leadership roles in governance. Also coming up is business, sports, showbiz and international news in the next 60 minutes. Stay tuned.
News at 8 with Israel Lai.
Some public sector workers from 12 unions staged a demonstration in Accra on Thursday to pressure government to allow them to choose fund managers for their Tier 2 pension contributions. The labor unions, who have been agitating for weeks, were recently forced to call off a strike to press home their demands.
The demonstration, according to them, is to show their determination to get government to release their pension contributions. The workers last month laid down their tools to compel government to transfer their Tier 2 pension funds into a privately managed account. They were, however, forced to call off the strike after government went to court. Negotiations between the workers and government ended in a deadlock, and the two have resorted to the law courts to settle the matter. The union leaders say the demonstration is in line with activities planned to put their message across.
The propaganda by government is that we, the unions, want to collect the pension money and manage it as we run our dues and so on. This is what we are saying. It's not true. We are not going to manage the money. There are schemes that have been set up. There are trustees licensed by, how do you call it, the National Pension Regulatory Authority. They are the ones going to invest these monies and manage them, monitored by the National Pension Regulatory Authority, not the unions that are going to collect the money and manage it. This is what we are saying. But the propaganda there is what workers must watch. Yes, the numbers didn't come out today, but this is the beginning of more demonstrations to happen. Yes.
The turnout was, however, nothing like the 100,000 they had hoped for, but the unions maintained they have series of programs they will soon carry out throughout the country.
We think that our decision to embark on this demonstration was postponed as planned. And so what we did day before yesterday was too close for any serious mobilization. And that is why our members did not turn up. But I can assure you, our members confidently, they are all behind us. But let me just say, one of our roadmap, which immediately we are going to embark on, is serious outreach programs. We may have to even travel to regions, but the leadership to assist our colleagues there to really carry out the sensitization exercise that we are looking for.
The demonstrators later converged at the heart of Oak Park, but failed to present a petition to government.
If the money is there, let us see the money. If the money is there,
Meanwhile, in the Ashanti region, the 12 labor union members say the labor revolution has just begun and are vowed to fight till they get to the bottom of the matter. There's a report by Mahmoud Muhammad Nuruddin.
Members Members of the union Thursday marched through the streets of Kumasi to make their displeasure known.
What we are saying is simple. Please give us our pension money. Period.
They cautioned government appointees to stop intimidating members of the various unions.
The labor revolution has just begun. Let nobody stand our way.
The public workers say Thursday's demonstration is just one of the many actions to compel government to act.
And they should not wait. When it is beyond control, then they will be appealing to us.
The aggrieved workers got support from members of the public. One of the leaders of the forum, which has been battling government, vowed they will use all means to ensure their demands are met. The demonstrators eventually converged at the Kumasi Cultural Center, where they were urged to remain resolute in their pursuit of what belongs to them.
Minority members of parliament have vowed to continue to resist the special petroleum tax currently slapped on petroleum products. The 17.5% VAT laid by the finance minister when he presented the 2015 budget was passed by one-sided parliament Wednesday after the minority walked out. They say the walkout is just the beginning of their resistance, adding they are prepared to hit the streets to protest a decision they believe will bring further hardship to the ordinary Ghanaian.
Minister of Finance Setsep presented the special petroleum tax bill to Parliament under a certificate of urgency, meaning that it had to be pushed through a lot faster than ordinary legislations, so that hours after it was presented, the Finance Committee approved it for consideration by the House. The minority MPs, fully aware of their disadvantage as far as the numbers are concerned, argued strongly why the tax is a bad move.
So today, you can look at the good people of this country and tell them that the price, 70.5% increase, is only. Leader, God bless you. We will not be part of God bless you. We will not be part of the house. It's only God bless you. We will not be part. If it is intended to inflict this strain on the good people of this country, we certainly will not be part. Order.
The minority members insist their protest is not over.
20-30 times the amount of money we make in a day. Those people are selling fuel to their citizens at $3, and we in Ghana are selling fuel to our citizens at $5. What crime have we done? And in America, where people make, we're going to go to the people and explain our issues to them. We're going to go to the people and do demonstrations. This is not just the end. It is something that will continue and not just sit and fold our hands. How can we accept this?
What is worse, you see, they need the money next year, but they are willing to start taking it from us now. And it's only 110 million. Wyoming's money is only 51 million. That's mismanagement. You look at JIDA, another 250 million. That's the money right there. If they spend it properly, they wouldn't need to tax us. We will take whatever further actions that we can take, but we urge Ghanaians to also do what is necessary.
The law is part of tax measures adopted by government to increase revenue generation and improve efficiency on revenue collection from petroleum products. Petrol, diesel and kerosene, as a result of the tax, are now selling at 3% more. LPG is however supposed to experience a price reduction of about 10%. Government hopes to realize some 1.541 billion Ghana cedis from the tax between now and December 2015. Aisha Ibrahim, Joy News, Parliament, Accra.
Now, Parliament on Thursday suffered its share of the anguish many customers of the Electricity Company of Ghana have been enduring on a regular basis, especially in the last few weeks that the power supply situation seems to have worsened. Joy News' Aisha Ibrahim reports sitting was held up until almost noon due to outages that affected the chamber, much to the displeasure of Speaker Adoa Jaho. He has directed a 6-member committee to look into the problem, except they will only be concerned about how Parliament can be spared these outages.
The House had to suspend sitting for almost an hour due to the power cuts at the start of business on Thursday. When sitting finally resumed at about 11 a.m., the House experienced another outage, which almost got the Speaker suspending proceedings for a second time, but for the timely restoration of supply from a standby generating unit. The Speaker at that point expressed his disgust about the situation.
This morning, when we had the problem, we were advised by ECG that we can continue using our generator while they sort out the ECG line, because they are having problem with the ECG lines. So we should still continue using our generator. I went back to my office. I was called by the clerk that they have stabilized the situation, and that's when I came back for us to continue proceedings with the House. But I entirely agree with you, because a few months ago, members will recall that when the minority decided to hold a press conference, in the course of the press conference there was power outages. I immediately asked the clerk to present a report to me as to what caused it. I was given assurance when the report came that there was a problem with the generator and they've addressed it. I gave copies of that report to the majority leader and the minority leader. I'm surprised these developments are coming, and I think that I entirely agree with the member for Secondary that this is the time for us to set up an investigation, to go into this matter so that members of the House can be properly briefed. We cannot, as a House, continue in this way. It is unacceptable.
He explained the House had to run on generator for 2 hours on Wednesday, despite the cost involved, simply because they were unconvinced that ECG could assure supply for the entire duration of the 2015 budget presentation.
Finance was here. We were on Parliament generator throughout because they didn't want the ECG power outages to affect us during the course of the presentation.
The 6-member committee will be headed by the 2 leaders of the House. The Electricity Company of Ghana has been heavily criticized for the incessant unannounced power cuts in various homes and businesses. They, however, insist the problem is not entirely their doing, as the country is not generating enough electricity to go round. Aisha Ibrahim, Joy News, Parliament, Accra.
There's something that's good for the Gander as well. Meanwhile, members of Parliament on Thursday got quite passionate about getting rid of schools under trees when the Deputy Education Minister, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, represented his minister to answer questions pertaining to the Education Ministry.
Deputy Minister for Education Okudzeto-Ablakwa explained that from 2010, government has provided funding for the construction of the Schools and the Trees project, in addition to allocations made under the Get Fund financing program for Schools and the Trees. Members of the minority were, however, unconvinced by government's efforts.
The issue is not about when we will consider the next phase. But the issue is that as we speak now, there are more than 2,000 people sitting under trees. 2,000 people sitting under trees in my constituency. And if he is waiting to consider them for the next phase, I don't see how they will survive. Your question. So when is he going to provide school blocks for them so that they are not in the Hamatan, beyond the Hamatan season?
We want to assure the Honourable Member of Parliament that we will come and have a look, and as this particular session of Parliament considers the Get Fund formula, we will try and give special consideration to this situation.
The 2012 manifesto of the National Democratic Congress promised to completely abolish all schools under trees by the year 2016. But members of the minority contend with over 2,000 schools still studying under trees, government is unlikely to succeed. Aisha Ibrahim, Joy News, Parliament, Accra.
Mainstream politics is one field of endeavor which appears to be largely unaffected by the strides made by gender advocates in getting more women into leadership positions. The Parliament of Ghana, for instance, since the start of the Fourth Republic, has had just a handful of female MPs, with the number hovering around 10%. Gender advocates are, however, not relenting. Buoyed by a belief there are distinguished women who could make a huge difference in the country's governance should they get the chance. They are therefore pushing for the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill.
The draft Affirmative Action Bill has been justified as one of the key factors to improve representation of women in political offices in the country. The bill, which was promulgated in 2010, is seeking a quota of 40% women representation in all levels of governance, from the district assembly level to parliament. The Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, which is spearheading the bill, believes it is especially crucial if the many challenges facing women and children, and which have largely been unresolved by successive governments, are to be tackled satisfactorily.
The draft Affirmative Action Bill is a legal framework and piece of legislation that will ensure that women in Ghana are represented at all levels of governance. For instance, yes, we have a female Chief Justice, but then when we look at the numbers of women, Supreme Court judges, Appeal Court judges, High Court judges, district, realize that it's not enough.
Nana Oyelitha promised to work closely with the leadership of Parliament and the executive to ensure the passage of the bill.
It has been long. Women groups have been talking and advocating for this bill, and we're happy that under President John Dramani Mahama it is a reality and that we have a draft bill. We've been having consultations. We had one with civil society. We are very, very grateful to FES for supporting the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection to do this, and we're having with the members of Parliament, specifically the Gender Committee and the Constitution and Legal Committees of Parliament. We will engage with the political parties, with the Electoral Commission and other groups subsequently.
A report by Beatrice Sowa for Joy News.
You're watching the Primetime News Bulletin. You're on Joy News on Multi TV. Still to come, the father of late selected journalists and communicators working with health NGOs and government agencies have been taken through a 3-day Ebola communication training program organized by BBC Media Action in conjunction with USAID. The program is to help better prepare humanitarian personnel, media communicators and government officials to communicate to a population threatened by the Ebola virus disease.
The workshop focused on raising awareness and education in countries that are at risk of the Ebola virus disease and how best to prepare journalists to use communication to reach the public with the latest messaging and information on Ebola.
Communication is really critical in preventing the spread of the Ebola virus. And it's not only about helping the population understand what the virus is, what the symptoms are, how to prevent the virus and stay safe from it. It's also about listening to the population, listening to fears and concerns, understanding what the rumors are. Now, Ghana, as yet, has not been affected by Ebola, but we do need to be well prepared in every sense to be able to cope with the possible threat of it.
A representative from the Center for Disease Control also stressed on the need to provide credible information to encourage safe behavior.
One of the things we learned in Sierra Leone is that there are a lot of different messages about Ebola, too many to really teach anybody at one point in time. So what we did in Sierra Leone was we looked at the data and we picked out what were the most important messages to stop transmission of Ebola. And we came up with 4 big ideas that we wanted to really get the public to understand and to start to change their behavior about. So it involved safe burials, save lives. It involved getting early treatment so that you have a better chance of surviving. It involved teaching families how to protect themselves from Ebola while they waited for help. And it involved teaching people that survivors were actually not only safe to be around, but they were heroes and should be celebrated when they come back to the community.
Participants who were drawn from print, radio and television stations across the country shared their thoughts after participating in the 3-day workshop.
One thing that I'll be taking back to my newsroom is to report on the lifeline issues instead of focusing more on the panic aspect of the disease. We've been taught a lot about how we can help people get protected from the disease, how we can help people get early treatment. That is one of the key issues or the key things that will help people to survive, and that is what I'm taking into my newsroom from here.
Extremely useful, mainly because it's been mostly practical. What they've made us do is go through various scenarios and test our own responses to breaking news. They've taught us practical skills on how to prioritize which information is important and which information can be transmitted later. Because in a crisis, people need the data that will save their lives. And this program has really helped us hone our skills and got us thinking about the right things to prioritize in a news bulletin or in a radio show to ensure that we are giving our listeners the right value, the important things that they need to know at that moment in the middle of a crisis like an Ebola outbreak.
First thing to do is to take your colleagues through it. You understand? To change the culture of the people when it comes to emergency reporting, not only Ebola, but any other emergency at all. So that's the first step, taking them through it, let them understand the nuances of it. So once you start that arrangement, then when every script drops on your table, you know how to, if you like, fine-tune it so that people can get the information, useful information that they need, not just put out everything or anything at all, and then you don't give the people solutions.
Meanwhile, the public relations officer of the Ministry of Health has hinted plans by government to organize similar programs across the country.
Access to places of convenience is a human right for all, but this is not the case for many Ghanaians who find it difficult attending to nature's call when urgently required to do so. To drum home the need for people to access decent places of convenience, WaterAid Ghana has called for an end to open defecation during this year's World Toilet Day celebration.
According to a report by WaterAid Ghana, some 63,000 children died in 2000 due to lack of toilet facilities. The situation was compounded by the fact that 8 out of 10 children in Ghana do not have access to basic toilet facilities, safe drinking water and hygiene services. The situation is prevalent in many communities across the country. One of such areas, the Odododiodo constituency in the capital, is saddled with a problem of open defecation. Residents mostly use the beach front as their place of convenience, as many homes there do not have their own toilet facilities. The only option is for persons in such communities to rely on public toilets, which are also hard to come by in their communities.
I had the toilets nearby our public toilets. If you be any toilets, because toilets in a population in Crawford doors to power. And see, I think say you bring toilets if you nana a big crap work and one a beboa. I had the toilets no back up Brazil Lane on next streets.
The problem is that in this area the houses are very small. People are willing to construct toilet in their houses, but where to lay the, how can I put it, the toilet is the problem. Maybe when you are about to do it, somebody will say it's at the back of my window. He will not allow you.
We go to public toilets and we pay 30 pesos. We want the government to help us to build toilets in our homes.
Although the MMDAs are expected to enforce the laws on sanitation by arresting landlords who do not have toilet facilities in their homes, the implementation of the law is a challenge. But District Environment Officer for the Ashiedu Keteke Sub-Metro, Reverend Chris Gaugbe, says there is the need for residents to also take responsibility by changing their attitudes.
Every household is expected to have their own toilet facility as they are constructing their house. So if they are saying they don't have enough toilet facility in this area, I will not accept that for them now, because we take care of the public toilet facilities. The public toilet facilities that are in our catchment area. They are the toilet facility that AMA has constructed, and they are not supposed to take care of the household. They are supposed to take care of what? The strangers who are passing by and they feel like what? Easing themselves. That is the purpose of public toilet facility.
Communications Director of WaterAid Ghana, Kafui Nyako, said poverty eradication is directly linked to having a place of convenience and advised residents to contribute their quota by ensuring their communities are provided with decent toilet facilities.
Usually when you mention sanitation, people start thinking about refuse, but sanitation from our perspective, is more of having access to basic toilets like latrines in communities, especially in homes, so that people will not have to go outside to do open defecation.
Roslyn Oponsewa's reports for Joy News, Accra.
We'll be back with business in a bit. Deputy Minister of Finance Mona Quartey has assured the special petroleum tax will not increase public transport fares as anticipated by many. She says the tax, which translates into 3% increment of petrol prices, is rather to benefit the people of Ghana in accruing the needed revenues for development.
Deputy Finance Minister Mona Quartey was explaining aspects of the 2015 budget presented in Parliament by the Finance Minister, said Tekwe, to journalists.
Our team, our tax policy team, was careful to make sure that this was not going to be a burden on anyone. So you will notice that in terms of premium and it's premium and gasoline, there's an increase of 3% here. We are not talking about 17.5. That is to the oil marketing company. At the retail level, it's 3% and it's 3%. That translates to about 10 pesos per liter. So that goes to the few of us who have big cars who want to drive around all day and waste petrol. Then you will have a big tax burden. But if you don't, then you will be within range. Now for the poor and vulnerable, and I'm talking about the poor and vulnerable, those who cannot even afford trotro or taxi, they won't have this issue at all. Now for the middle group who will use public transport, with public transport we have an arrangement with the GP RTU that if the increase in the ex-pump fuel is not more than, it's not even up to 10% or more than 10%, there'll be no change in their pricing. So with a 3% change, we won't see a change in price. We should not see a change in pricing of public transport.
Tax policy advisor to government, Dr. Labisian, also explained the rationale behind the new taxes and the revenues to accrue to the state.
Technically, everybody is supposed to file his or her return so that we tax you according to what you are earning. But I can tell you as a fact, almost 95 to 96% of Ghanaians don't file. The highest tax of 25% is falling on income exceeding 31,680. But our study has revealed that most directors do fall into the 17.5 and the 25%. We are not talking about you because you are not there yet. So if you are not going to come and file your return, the withholding that will raise from 10 to 20, at least we'll get back to government.
The Ghana Infrastructure Fund, according to the Finance Ministry, is undergoing some processes currently for a successful takeoff next year.
We are currently working on getting the personnel who will handle the fund. I think the budget referred to an executive search that is going on to get the chief executive. There are others, the chief operating officer. Actually, there'll be a board that is set up, a committee, and so forth. So all those institutional things are being done as we speak. This will take commercially viable projects. It will take projects that have the cash flows that can repay loans associated with it and do well and continue to maintain itself. An example of a project that may go in there, we haven't confirmed because we don't even have the structures, totally in place, would be maybe the Western Rail project.
The GIF will meanwhile be funded with $250 million of the $1 billion bond recently issued, 2.5% of VAT, as well as petroleum revenues from the annual budget funding amount, ABFA.
Government has approved the takeover of the Ghana National Gas Company by the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation. Finance Minister Tekpe announced this when he presented government's financial statement for 2015 to Parliament, explaining it will make it possible to enhance a more integrated management and continued financing of projects in the oil and gas enclave immediately.
The facility is expected to be as much a game changer as the investment of about $1 billion of the CDB loan in our first gas infrastructure. These are all critical to our long-term national energy security. Mr. Speaker, it is in this vein that government has approved the takeover of the Ghana National Gas Company, GNGC, by GNPC to create a gas subsidiary for the latter. The consolidation of GNPC and GNGC will make it possible to enhance a more integrated management and continue financing of projects in the oil and gas enclave immediately. It will make it possible to ease the conditions that investors are imposing for the national gas aggregator and start financing projects in the oil and gas enclave immediately. Government will appoint a transactions advisor for these purposes and request them to advise on a further consolidation involving the thermal oil recovery and the bulk oil and storage transit company.
Well, the Minister for Energy and Petroleum, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, has commended the GNPC for going into the international market to borrow $700 million to support its projects. He says the energy sector will see massive growth if more institutions can do the same, as they will ensure rapid resolution of the country's electricity challenges whilst creating jobs.
We are stuck in a negotiation because we want more gas to be able to produce electricity. The company who is going to produce this says that unless we have a security, we can't do this project. This project is $6 billion. Unless you create an escrow account, GNPC, you have to create an escrow account and make sure there's a $500 million in it. If ECG failed to pay that, we can call on that money and pay it. The pipeline that will bring that gas, you also need to make sure you go and borrow money and do it, because other than that, we will charge interest rate of over 22%. GNPC is going to the market, gets less than 5% to do that infrastructure to reduce the price of gas. No translation, future hope for Ghana. Electricity in the future will not only be there, but it is potentially going to be reasonable because of these projects. We can't afford not to do these projects.
how do we make sure that we have more of these GMPCs in Ghana who can go out and borrow 700 million? Today, as I'm speaking to you, can ECG, VRA, can Greco, can they go out on their balance sheet? They need a government sovereign guarantee. They need a government to back them. So because of that, they can do projects, create jobs, and expand.
Tech giant Yahoo will now replace online leader Google as the default search engine on Firefox's internet browsers in the US. Yahoo said it will launch a clean, modern and immersive design search engine for Firefox users starting in December. The news comes as Google's arrangement with Firefox maker Mozilla nears an end after a decade-long partnership. Market leader Google accounts for 67% of searches from US desktop computers. That compares to about 20% for Microsoft and 10% for Yahoo, according to research firm Comscore. Yahoo chief executive Marita Mayer called the 5-year deal with Firefox the most significant partnership for Yahoo in 5 years. And that'll be all for business news. Now, before I bring you sports, the father of the late ace Ghanaian broadcaster Komla Dumo has for the first time revealed that his son faced racism while working in London. He was speaking at the launch of a website to eulogize the late broadcaster who died early this year. The website, komladumofoundation.org, is designed to help advance his ideas and also to promote excellence in broadcast journalism, education and youth development.
The late broadcaster, who influenced the life of many both in Africa and the worldwide, continues to live on in the lives of many. His father, Professor Ernest Dumont, at the launch said he spent a lot of time reading and investigating racism so he could deal with them in real-life encounters.
As I said several times before, he experienced racism, and in the process, he spent time reading about racism and what had happened to the African experience. Not too long ago, before his death, he was interviewed. And in that interview, he was asked, what was the book that had had any real impact on your life? And his answer was Bigger Thomas. If you're familiar with Richard Wright's book, Native Son, this is the situation of an African-American boy overwhelmed by racism, ended up committing murder, and of course, thrown into jail. The question was Bigger Thomas really a victim of the system, or that was how he was conditioned?
Professor Ernest Dumont advised the youth, who are also in the same trend, to be more determined and focused.
It is important for the young people to speak out with regards to their problems, the challenges they face, so that when national policy on youth development is being formulated, those policies.
Right, let's do some sports now. And Premier League side Inter Allies has announced its withdrawal from representing Ghana in the 2015 CAF Confederations Cup. The Tema Bay side were losing finalists in the 2013-2014 MTN FA Cup to league champions Asante Kotoko and secured the ticket to play in Africa for the first time. But the club CEO Delali Senaya has been explaining to Joy Sports why they can't afford to participate in the competition.
Our position has been a very difficult one. We took a while to assess our situation, financial situation, and we realized that it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to play in Africa with our limited resources that we have. We've reached out to some partners we have across Ghana and Europe, and their response were not encouraging. Though we set aside some funds for this competition, Confederation Cup, the funds that we set aside eventually lost some value. About maybe, if not minimum 20% of the value is gone. Playing in Africa, we just don't have the resources. We were hoping that by now we should have played 10-15 matches. Then in January, there are some interest from Europe for some of our players that played last season. So if they go, if they have been transferred from our club to the European clubs, the process of those transfers would have been the money we will use for CAF Confederation League without depending on anybody to compete. But because the league delay, we can't let these boys go. We'll be in trouble.
All right, we'll be giving you some news as well on the league delay. There was a court case today, but now let's talk about Brecum Chelsea because their coach, Tony Loco, has left post over poor working conditions and unpaid salaries. The former Medias man confirmed his resignation to Joy Sports a few hours ago. It's a second administrative casualty to hit the Brecum-based club in just 2 months after general manager Odro Safo quit in October. Brecum Chelsea head coach Tony Loco has resigned from post over poor working conditions. The former Medias Professionals coach has owed salaries for months and is fed up with the inconsistencies of the club's administration and has decided to move on from the Brecum-based club. Loco, who led Brecum Chelsea to a disappointing 12th place finish on the First Capital Plus Ghana Premier League log last season, signed a 2-year deal with an option of another year in July last year. After guiding debutants and Medias Professionals to an 11th place finish in the 2012-2013 Ghana Premier League season, Tony Loco also confirmed that he's had a number of lucrative deals from which he's yet to choose from in the coming days. This comes as a double blow for Brecum Chelsea, whose general manager Francis Odro Safo quit last month after an internal dispute with Chief Executive Officer Nana Kwame Nketia. Odro Safo, who had worked with the club for 4 years, refused to cite reasons for his resignation. Brecum Chelsea will be looking to beef up the administrative and technical teams while the 2013-2014 Ghana Premier League season delay persists. Meanwhile, one case filed by Ken Faisal against the Ghana Football Association to throw away the FA's disciplinary committee's ruling has been dismissed by the court. Justice Isel, the judge, says the GFA is a private association and cannot interfere or dismiss the ruling of its disciplinary committee. The final judgment will be heard on the 8th of December 2014. On the African continent, and then we can talk about Nigeria because their football federation has accepted the responsibility for the team not qualifying, and Ivory Coast could face some sanctions after fans invaded their pitch in their goalless draw with Cameroon.
There's been great anger directed at coach Stephen Keshi, while the Football Federation has said it accepts full responsibility for the qualifying failure. But do fans on the streets of Abuja agree?
It's a sad thing and also a setback on African football, considering that an African champion of that magnitude, will not be there. It's actually not too good for our football. But I won't blame the players, neither the coach. It's boiled down to our local politics because NFF have been in one courtroom after the other.
To me, it's not the fault of the coach. The fault is that the politics in Nigeria. Everybody knows the politics in Nigeria. My brother is playing in Germany, my brother is playing in London, my brother is playing here. Bring him, let him come and future him. That is our problem.
If someone should put his mind on Nigeria, if Nigeria was playing ball, he just get a heart attack.
Now, it's worth taking a close look at the gloves of South Africa goalkeeper Darren Keat in the Nigeria game. He put a Bible verse on his gloves which reads, "There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friend," a reference to Senzo Meyiwa, the former South Africa goalkeeper and captain who was shot dead last month. Elsewhere, Ivory Coast could be set for a sanction on playing matches in Abidjan after a pitch invasion marred their qualification. Police struggled to restore order after fans flooded onto the pitch. A CAF spokesman has told Focus the incident is likely to be addressed at a meeting on the 1st of December. Forward Gervinho was particularly singled out, let's say, for treatment as a fan seemingly tried to remove his shorts.
Well, I'm not too sure. That was the celebration, really, after Ivory Coast qualified for it. But we'll see what happens then. That'll be all for sports tonight. I'm George Adder Jr. Israelite will join us with some more. You have a good night.
Award-winning gospel group No Tribe will on November 29 launch their latest album, One God Live. The album launch will be in the form of a concert which will feature some of the country's finest musicians as well as other performers.
Bursting onto the music scene some years ago, the dynamic duo made up of Nasi and Lord have never failed to impress. The award-winning duo have performed on several platforms, both locally and internationally. Typical of their fun-loving attitude for praise and worship, the duo is putting together a concert to launch their new album, One God Live. Singers Kwesi Oting, OJ, Sisi Chum, Kwabna and comedians DKB and Calibos are expected to thrill patrons at the event.
It's a day of praise and worship, because you can't bring all these guys, OJ, Koda, Kwesi Oting, Sisi Chum, Kwabna, Ahofe Patricia, and Calibos, DKB, and then Almighty, our Papa, Reverend Steve Mensah, to under one roof, and then you just go there and you leave the place crying. It's not possible. So that's what is going to happen, full of praise and then worship.
One of the artists on the bill, OJ, tells Showbiz what fans should expect.
For those who know OJ, there will be a lot of stagecraft. I make sure that I deliver my message through acting and all that. So if it happens that the choice of songs I'll be doing involves that, I'll definitely do that. So we are going to have a very wonderful time. We are going to praise the Lord. We are going to worship Him. We are going to have fun. It will be a combination of artistry. It is going to be something good. It is going to be a night of wonders, signs and wonders, laughter and everything.
The One God Live concert will be held at the Charismatic Evangelistic Ministries, not Legon.
And that's it for Showbiz. For our top stories, public sector workers have staged demonstrations in Accra and Kumasi to demand that government give them a chance to decide who manages their Tier 2 pension contributions. Minority MPs, after walking out on deliberations of the special petroleum tax bill, have vowed to continue to resist it. Meanwhile, the Speaker of Parliament, outraged after 2 days of erratic electricity supply to the House, has set up a committee to investigate Parliament's blackouts. Father of late Ghanaian broadcaster Komala Dumo has been speaking about how he dealt with racism whilst working in London. And the Gender Minister has pledged to ensure the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill to encourage more women to take up leadership roles in government. That'll be all. My name is Israelite. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening.